We'll be starting shortly. Oh, I'll be starting the video at 8:04, so just bear with me for a little bit here. Check 1, 2. Can you hear me? So just bear with me for a little bit. Check 1, 2. Almost there. Almost there. Alright. Hello, everybody. It is Antonio here on Button Mash Programming. So last time we had we had last time we had sorry, I was just got distracted by that message. Last time we had the done the video, I had given you guys homework at the end of the session. The homework being to multiply two numbers and have the equation plus the answer display to the user. So here is essentially how it was done, and I have also added something else, and I'll just explain it step by step here. I'm going to explain first off that start later on. We'll come back to that because I prefer to show you that at the end. So, the first thing you need to do, as I stated in the last videos, you need to create two integers. So I created integer as an int number 1, int num01, sorry, semicolon at the end of that, and int num02 and semicolon at the end of that. The second thing we need to do is we need to ask the user to input the first number to multiply. So how you do that is, again, you want to make sure you write to line, and anything within the quotations will display to the users to the user in the console. So if you write console dot write line circle brackets quotations, and inside the quotations you write type in the first number to multiply, and then close quotations and close circular brackets, and end this line of code with a semicolon. The third thing you want to do is you want to convert the integer to the number the user has inputted, representing for number 1 specifically. So if they said, okay, so when you've asked them to enter in the number, you want to convert that number 1 to an integer, and have the console accept the users have the console use the user's input. So how we do that is we go num01 as the integer we declared earlier, equals convert dot to int 32 circular brackets console dot readline, open and close circle brackets for console dot readline, and uh, close the original circular bracket. So wherever you're opening a circular bracket, like right here and right here, oops, right there, it needs a closing. Right here, it needs a closing. So just make sure you're closing that. And again, we close this line of code, saying that we're done with this specific line with a semicolon. The next thing we want to do is ask the user to input the second number, so the number they want to multiply the number to. So just say they selected 4 as the first number, they want to multiply it by 5. So the second number, again, ask for the user's input. Input the second number is what the user is going to see. And we did that with console.WriteLine, open circle bracket, open quotation, and input second number, close quotation, and close circular bracket and semicolon. The next line, again, so you're going to notice that a lot of this looks very repetitive, and yes, it can be in some aspects. So now that the user has inputted the second number, we want to convert the integer to that number, and we want it to input that information to the console. So the user, again, what we want to do is number num02 as the integer we declared earlier is equal convert dot to int 32 circular brackets open and console dot readline, open circular bracket, close circular bracket, and close another circular bracket, and semicolon at the end of that. Again, this is fairly standard. Convert to int32. It is the most common one we used, as we discussed earlier. We had actually mentioned there's a few of them convert to int16 and all that, but 32 is the most common one. This usually represents how many decimal places there are. In addition to that, just so I don't know if I've made this clear earlier, whatever is capitalized, so whatever you capitalize when you're declaring your integer, and I can technically do that, but I prefer not to. Whatever you declare as your integer, and whatever you declare as your whatever you declare as your integer, and however you declare it, it needs to be typed exactly the way you've typed it. You'll notice here, for an example, if I took num2 and just capitalize the n, it's going to tell me there's an error. Why? Because it does not recognize that anymore. All right. Okay. Now that I've went back and fixed that, in addition to that, as I mentioned, anything with code has capital. Some things have capital letters, some things don't, but it needs to be used exact. You can't write console.readline in all lowercase letters. It needs to be console, capital C, read, capital R, line, capital L. The way I just remembered it is just treat them as separate words, and every word has a capital in it at the beginning. For the next thing, we want to display the equation and the answer to the user. So console.WriteLine again, and because we're trying to display something to the user, we're going to say number 1 plus. Now this does not mean add number 1 and multiply. What it means is you are going to be putting the number 1 in place of this, and then the next word that the user will see is multiplied by, and then the number they had entered in for number 2, and then they'll see is equal to, and then here's the actual equation. This actual equation doesn't show to the user, but it's just telling the system what they're solving exactly. You'll notice here that I have also done an additional console.WriteLine, and this is actually just to leave an empty space between between the code and when it asks you to press any key. Now there's something here that I have not yet shown you. Specifically, you don't obviously want to use this, and you'll find out why for things like loops and those kinds of things later. You don't always want it to go back to start. Sometimes you just want the program to end at some point in time. But as I was mentioning earlier, I want the code to repeat. So it's going to say go to start. When I go to start, and I wrote start up here. So basically, at the end of the code, after the user has done all these things and all these things have happened, it's going to say go to start all over. Now I'm going to show you a little bit of what this looks like. So again, Control F5 on my keyboard to run the program. It's going to be loading, and here we go. Just give it a second to input the next number. Why? I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Multiply the first number. So it's telling me to type in the first number. I don't know why the system is acting so weird, but we'll leave it alone for now. 5. Okay. Enter in the second number. 5. As you can see, it's just running with the code I have there. So 5 times 5 equals 25. And then, as you see, another space, the space between, as I mentioned earlier, right here. And then it's asking you to enter in another number. So 9 times 9 equals 81. And it just keeps repeating it. And you'll notice that in the words here, 9 multiplied by 9 is equal to 81. It does not say 9 plus multiplied by, no, it just says 9 multiplied by 9 is equal to, and then the answer. Well, I hope that makes sense. I hope I broke that down as much as possible for you guys. But we will continue to work through this. Now, this is just based off the homework that I provided to you guys last time. We're going to go into something a little bit different here now. We're actually going to go into conditional statements. I can't quite show it to you right now because right here it's not showing. But sometimes you want to always save your work, and you obviously want to hit save every time you've made changes. You'll see a little star right here, approximately, if you have not yet saved it. I can close it right now. It's not going to ask me to save it, and it's just going to run. Oh, right there. Perfect. So, little star, as I mentioned earlier, it's right there. I have not yet saved this one. So, save, and the star is gone. All right. So, for the next thing we're getting into, we're going to be discussing if statements. Now, these can get a little confusing, and to be honest with you, for the first little while when I was doing them, I was just kind of going with the flow and actually not actually understanding it. But I think breaking it down is the best way to go. So first and foremost, as I mentioned to everyone earlier, the best and smartest thing you can do is leave notes for yourself. For everything you're doing, it gets you into a habit of doing it for future coders, working on your work, looking at your work, or referring back to your work, and it also helps you remember exactly what you're doing and translating what the exact line means. So, we're going to be creating a program that asks the user for their age and replies according to the user's response. This can be used for setting an appropriate age group for games, or setting a certain age appropriate for websites, what have you. But this is more so for programming, or to use something. Basically, it's just saying, oh, you're not old enough, or what have you. So, how we're going to go about doing this is we're going to start first. Again, we want to make sure we're breaking this down. So, first thing we want to do is we want to prompt the user, obviously, for the age. The first and foremost thing we want to know is, how old are you? Right? Because, again, like I mentioned earlier, the program runs in order of what is happening. So if I put this all the way at the bottom, it's not going to say that till later. So it wouldn't serve any purpose anywhere else but the top. So, um, first, we want to prompt the user for the age, as I was saying. So console.writeLine, and again, we're prompting the user. Please enter in your age. So what is your age, right? The second thing we're going to do is we're going to create an integer for age. Then we're going to convert the integer age to a numeric value that the user has entered, and receive the user's input into our console. So in words, that sounds a little confusing, but I'm going to break this down to you, okay? So first, we are declaring the integer as age. So the number that the user enters in is going to be represent the integer age. Then we're going to convert to an integer. So based on the number that the user has entered here, it's going to convert age to that number, so the system recognizes it as that number, and then it's going to uh, prompt the console to receive the input. So it's going to take the input that the user has entered and apply it to whatever have you. So um, where this gets a little confusing here is usually when you see console.writeLine, you don't see it within brackets, but when you're writing convert to int, you can guarantee that the console.writeLine is going to be within brackets, and it's going to have empty brackets at the end of it. So the empty brackets are for specifically this, and convert to int, for convert to int 32, in the parentheses, which are the brackets, is all of this. So basically, you're putting the console.writeLine within the brackets. You're going to end this with a semicolon because this is the end of this particular code. Had we would have kept this open, it would have thrown us a bunch of errors, and it just doesn't, because it doesn't know where the code, it knows where it begins, but it doesn't know exactly where this particular line of coding ends. The next thing we'll be doing is we'll be creating the if statement. Now, this is actually pretty very literal to what it says, to what it is. So if we want to create an if statement, basically if statements are to set conditions based on what the user has input, or to do something based on what the user has input. So first of all, we want to create the if statement and set the conditions of the statement. Okay, so first we have the word if, as I said, very literal, and within the parentheses, the brackets, this is where we put the conditions. So this represents if age, so whatever number the user has entered, is less than 18, then dot dot dot. Okay, now what you're doing here is, now if this age is this, you're going to notice these curly brackets. These curly brackets are saying if the age is less than this, do this. So within these brackets, this is usually the do this. This is the function. This is the function that is going to happen after the user has after the user has either verified or verified or not they're at this age. Now, I'll explain a little bit more into what if they don't enter, what if they enter in something that is greater than 18 or 18, but we'll discuss that shortly. So, what you're going to do right now is we're going to say, so basically, if the user is at the age is less than the age of 18, then then we're going to have we're going to have this console tell the user, please wait a few years. Okay? Now, something to keep in mind, I didn't forget about this. My placement of these particular notes are actually in a really horrible spot. And if I didn't mention this earlier, the backslash and the star represent more than one line of comments, and we end it with a star and a backslash, so just in reversed order. So for your future reference, please note that equal, if you want to write something is equal to and only equal to, you don't want to write anything else, equal to is two equal signs. Equal to or less than is equal or the less than sign. If you write, if you want to write equal or greater than, you write equal to, you want to write equal to and greater than sign. So the way I remember this, and I know it sounds kind of stupid, but it again, I have a lot of tricks to remembering things because I wasn't always the best student when I was younger. Uh, a couple things you can do is like the way I remember it is no matter what the numbers for these particular statements is going to be on the right hand side of whatever this is. Okay, so if the sign is eating this number, then it is going to it means less than. If it is going in the opposite direction, it means greater than. Just a little trick to help you remember. So you'll notice here I have closed I have closed the circular brackets because this is the function that is going to happen if this is the case, right? So, just a trick, and I'm going to show you something here. Say a word to forget one. It's going to tell me two errors, when really there's only one error. It's going to say line 22, okay, where's line 22? And line 46. Now, it's telling me here because it's saying, okay, there's like one little two less brackets, circular brackets. So again, within the functions, you want to make sure you're closing your function. And if you want to make sure that you've closed a function or where you want to make sure that you've closed it, all you got to do is hover right behind the symbol and it's going to highlight both of them. So here's where it begins and ends. Had I would have deleted that, deleting, that's not a word. Had I would have deleted that, as you can see, that becomes the one. So obviously, the code doesn't end. It doesn't end all the way down there. It ends after the function has heard. Um, okay, so the next thing I have for you is we want to place another sorry other and we want to place another condition if the user is older than 18. Now there's two things to keep in mind here. Okay, so if you want to place in another if you want to place in more criterias for the user, so like basically if you want to place in more conditions, you would say that's the fire alarm going off. I'm not cooking anything for the record, so don't worry about me, I'm good. um, so else is basically if this is not happening and there's no other conditions, then display this other message. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. But if you want to set more conditions, so just say you want to say if the user is under 18, that's the first condition. The user is the age is equal to the age of 18. You would say else if, and then place the conditions again within the brackets as if you're doing an if statement. And I'll show you that shortly. And then for anything else that doesn't follow within these two conditions, you just write the word else. And as you can see, else basically here. Okay, so here's the conditions. Else, like it's just saying otherwise. Okay, continue to play. So I'm going to show you what an else if statement looks like very quickly here. Now, keep in mind it usually goes between the if, well, it goes between the if and the else statement. So we go else if, and we're going to say age is, and as I mentioned before, equal the age of 18, and then we're going to place our curly brackets again because we're opening the function, okay, and within the function we're going to say console. Oh, sorry about that. A little trick for this, for console.WriteLine, write CW, and within the brackets, it gives you everything you need within the brackets. You're going to write great, perfect age. And like as I give me a second, I got my charger. I didn't expect that to happen, but sometimes you gotta be prepared for the worst. All right, there we go. That should do it. Yeah, that's doing it. Okay, perfect. So, uh, as you can see, I've added something here. So again, it's really good to get in the habit for memory's sake, and for the user's sake, to know what you're doing. So we can say if statement here. I mean, uh, input display message to user if 18 years of age. Here, because we want to place notes for this one as well, we want to say uh, um, place else statement, place else if statement. Oh my goodness, my typing. Sorry about that. It's not called button mash for nothing, eh? Place else if statement here and conditions. One thing I want to point out here is you're going to notice that at the end of each else if or else statement there is no condition, there is no semicolon, because the reason being for that is that code does not end there. That code is actually running all the way to the end of this close of circular bracket. So just in case you didn't understand that, or I didn't make that clear enough for you guys, that's why you'll notice there's no semicolon here, but there's only a semicolon the end of the console.WriteLine, because the console.WriteLine runs separately by itself. And again, it can go after that because technically that is where the code ends. We just want to make sure here's where this line of code ends, and down here is where the function for else ends. All right, so that is actually done. So just so you can see what this does now, hopefully it doesn't give me no errors. It's gonna embarrass me now. All right, we're good. So now we're gonna get it to show me this. Okay, we're gonna say 18. Great, you're the perfect age. See? All right, and we want to try this again. Control F5. We're gonna say 17. Uh, please wait a few years. Oh wow. Okay, I guess not. So Control F5. We're gonna write 26. Let's play. Perfect. So as you can see, that's how this works. You can kind of guess how this is gonna work for later games, as I've mentioned. It's to set an age group. I will be posting this video later, so if you didn't actually get a chance to watch this video on if statements, it will be up. No worries. If you have any questions about if statements, feel free to ask me. Before I go, one last thing. I have also created an assignment, and I think this is where I get the most, where I actually learn the most, is because I look at this code and then I could say, okay, how can I use this code to do something else? So here is the assignment. Before you watch the next video, what I want you to do is to create a math equation. So like 4 times 4, yeah, 4 times. So create a multiplication equation, and if the user enters the correct answer, say you are correct. If the answer is incorrect, have the answer say please try again. Uh, please try again. Now, I don't want you. Here is a great example of where I don't want you to bring the code back to start. The problem with bringing the code back to the start here is that it could basically, even if the answer is right, it's going to keep bringing it back to the start. So don't worry about that. Don't worry. We have something else to fix that later, and it'll be in the next statement about a little bit more about loops. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to message me on my Twitch account. Feel free to get a hold of me. However, thank you for joining me on Button Mash today. I'll be posting this video shortly. Have a good day and Happy New Year.